Hi and welcome to this webcast. My name's Chris Atherton. I'm a Senior Applications Engineer at Symmetry in the UK, which is part of the CADQ reseller group. In this webinar we're going to take a quick look at one of the methods I use to dimension drawings via iLogic. There are lots of different methods we can use, but this is one method I find works quite well. So in this example, you're going to need a few bits of software to be able to run it. Obviously, Inventor goes without saying for an iLogic example. The one I'm going to show you, it doesn't matter if you're using 2013 through 15, it all works the same way. An iLogic model that will configure so that you can show the differences, and another tool called the Attribute Helper. This is a tool that I discovered on Autodesk's website. Currently works for 2013 and later. It's not an official app, but it does seem to do the job. So that's one I use. What we're going to be doing is adding what we call attributes to several faces in a model so that we can reference them. I'll take you through that in a minute. And then using those, developing a rule to allow us to actually create a dimension based on those faces. So I basically want to pick two faces. I'm putting a tag on them, an attribute on them, so that I can find those faces easily. And once that's done, I'm then going to get some code to add a dimension between them. As the configuration changes, I'll have an if statement that will decide which dimensions need to be added. There are lots of different ways of doing this. This isn't the only method, but it is quite a good method to use when you're first starting off doing drawings. Inside my drawing, I'm going to need several rules. First rule I'm going to have is an overall process rule. This can be as simple or as complex as you want. In this example it would just be an if statement, but this could be looking at multiple sheets, it could be doing various other jobs as well. This rule will then decide which other rules need to be run. So if I'm having an if statement, it will decide which dimensions need to be added. Obviously, as you add dimensions to a drawing, if that configuration changes, those drawing dimensions could end up being redundant and end up pink on your drawing and need to be removed. So one of the things I'm very keen on doing as I use this method is making sure that each dimension gets a tag or an attribute associated with it, so that I can run a rule that will delete anything created by iLogic. That means that every time I run my process rule in my drawing, all my dimensions that iLogic's created get deleted. Any that are static get left alone. And then I can recreate them as required. Again, I'll take you through that. This presentation, I've just added in some copies of the rules. I'll put those on the blog for us as well. If I just have a very quick look, that way you've got them screen captured. That is the one for deleting iLogic created. So if you pause the screen now, you should be able to duplicate that. And the second one I've got is a little bit more complex, and this is one that allows me to create a dimension. Any dimension I want to create, I just duplicate this rule. I can make a much more generic version, but this is one, every dimension, separate rule. And this is the example that we would use. Okay, so again, if you just pause the video, you should be able to duplicate that. Okay, so let's take a look at this in action. If I flip over to Inventor, you can see that I've got a very simple model. What I want to do in this example is I'm going to add in a dimension from the side to this inner face on the door, and the same from that side to this face on this door. The problem I've got is if I go to my drawing and actually add our dimension on, so we're going to go from there to here, add that in, do the same on the other side. I'm sure you wouldn't use these dimensions, but this is what we're going to try and do. We might even have one in the middle if we wanted. These dimensions, as I configure my model, are going to become redundant. So in this example, if I go from 2 doors down to 1 door, just give it a second to configure that. If I go over to my drawing, I'll see the problem I have immediately is that this dimension is resized, this one is redundant, so I need to get rid of it. The same would happen if I swap the doors to right hand rather than left hand, or if I go from a single door back to a double door, I wouldn't have the dimension added. So how do I get around this? Well, if we install this attribute helper, what I end up with is this utility on the add-in screen. Now this utility allows us to add attributes to any object inside Inventor. So when I talk about an object, I can mean a part, subassembly, work plane, an edge, a point, a face, a feature, whatever we need to. In order to pick the right element, I'm going to just use my filters, and I'm going to change to face and edge filter. Click on my attribute helper. You can see there might be a few already existing in there, including any user parameters that allow custom values through iLogic. Any rules that you've got in iLogic will be detailed in here, any forms, that sort of thing. In this case, actually before I do that, let's just put my configuration back to both so I can add the attributes as required. Just save that. So in this case, if I go to this left hand face and I select it, with the attribute helper open, when I right click, I can add an attribute set. What is an attribute? What's an attribute set? Well, I imagine them as iProperties for any of these elements that we're selecting, in this case a face. If we were to look at normal iProperties, we have different tabs. When we're talking about attributes, these tabs would be called the attribute sets, and underneath these we've got different properties. Well, in terms of attributes, that would be an attribute with a value. So we've got our set, our attribute, and our value. And let's do that actually within the helper. Select the face, right click, add attribute set, give it a name. In this case I'm just going to be really simple and put dim for dimension. You can see it's putting an attribute on that face. I can see it highlights as I select it as well. If I right click on dim and add the attribute, I'm just going to give this a name, a type, so a string, i.e. a piece of text, and just put a value in there so I can search for it. And you can see that's added in. If I do the same on this side, add attribute set, dim, expand that out, right hand side, string 1. Okay, and again I'm going to do the same in here as well. Now when we're doing this, we need to be a little bit more careful. The edge that we want is this edge. I'm going to base this based on faces. So the question is, do we take this face or do we take that face? And you may need to experiment with both. In this case, I'm going to take the inside face, add my attribute set on, add my name or my attribute. So I'm going to call this door left hand side, and the same thing on this one here. So again, add attribute set. We're going to call this dim. Luckily this is the last one. Add attribute door right hand side 1. And each of these attributes and sets wants to be unique. That way we know exactly what we're searching for. Inventor, as it searches for these, will return one or more. So if there are 3 with the same name, it will return 3 potential options, and you can say which one you want. I like to be a little bit more specific about it, so I'm just going to put it on a single one and OK that. Once I'm done, I'm going to hit save, and that should be me. Okay, so how does this work? Well, let's have a look at our drawing, and we'll start off by adding the dimension from there to here. So if you imagine adding a dimension manually, the way that we do this is I would select one edge, select a separate edge, and then select a position to place it, and I can decide whether it's a horizontal or a vertical dimension. There might be different types that we're placing. We have the same abilities within iLogic. So first thing I want to do is say which view I'm going to be dimensioning. And then I'm going to search for that edge, I'm going to search for this edge, and I'm going to say where I'm going to place it. This view I have named front_view, and the rule that I've given you for dimensioning, if I just open up this rule, there are only certain, although it looks quite complex, there are only certain little bits that you need to change. First of all, you need to make sure you're on the current sheet that you want to dimension. That's a given. Okay. Next thing, put in your view name in these two locations. Okay. And also put in the set, the attribute, and the value for the first and the second face that you want to search for. So in this case, dim left hand side 1, dim right hand side 1. After that, you don't really have to touch anything. If you imagine that's selecting, or this little bit here is selecting the edge that we want. So this is going to the model and finding the face. And then what we're doing is saying, well, find me the edges inside the drawing that represent that face and return the very first item on it. You don't need to worry too much about that. The bit that we do need to look at is this bit here. So this is the placement position that we're going to put this dimension on. So in this case, if you look, I've got an X position and a Y position. Okay, if we look at the X position, I've got the O view, which is up here, my front view. So I've got O view left, so left hand point of that view, plus the width divided by 4. So I'm basically saying from the left point, add on a quarter of the width, and that's my X position. In this case, I might just say, actually I want width divided by 2. For the Y position, I've got the top point, and you can only do left and top or center, but I've taken the top position, minus the height, and then minused off a centimeter. Now, generally in Inventor, 1 will mean millimeters, but we're working with programming languages here, and therefore it's centimeters. And that's all I need. Everything else after that, you don't need to touch. So if I hit OK, you can see it's added that 700 in. If I need to remove that through code, this is where this delete iLogic created rule comes in. This is basically looking for dimensions that have an attribute on them called iLogic created. And if I look at my overall dimensions rule, the very last thing it does is says, well, this dimension that we've created, go away and add an attribute set to it called iLogic created. Again, if I was to look at my attribute helper, you'll see there's a linear dimension there with iLogic created underneath it. So if I run my delete iLogic created rule, that'll go away and clear that out. So we're going to do the same for left and the right hand side. Again, left hand side, front view, dim left hand side 1 to door left hand side 1. We're going to go a quarter of the way across. I'm going to OK that. You can see that's adding in. My right hand side 1, again, front view, right hand side to door right hand side 1. And I'm going to go a quarter times 3, so 3/4 of the way across to add in that value there. Just to make it a little bit clearer, in my overall dimension one, I'm going to expand that to make that a minus 2 centimeters, and hopefully that will push it down to there. Okay, so if I use my delete iLogic created, you can see they go. So that's great. Next thing we need to do is look at actually working out what dimensions I need to place. So inside my process rule, I'm going to first of all follow the pattern that I've put in this PowerPoint. I'm going to use my delete iLogic created rule. So in here I'm going to say run other, run rule in this document, and I'm going to put the rule name. Bear in mind that capitals makes a difference, so delete iLogic created. Okay. I've always spelled iLogic with a capital L and a lowercase I. That's legacy from when it used to be a tool created by Logimetrics before Autodesk bought it. We had quite a lot to do with them back in the day, and they used to spell it like that, so we do. But you can put it however you want. There's the iLogic created rule in. Next thing I want to do is decide on the value, and based on that do an if statement. So if I drill down into my rule, look at my user parameter, I can find my parameter that has door location. You can see that there are three options. Right click, capture current state. That brings me in the parameter with the name. So I'm going to say if parameter door location is both, then do something. Okay, else, let's copy that. And again, there are lots of ways to write this, but I'm just putting it in a very simple way for you. Else end if. Okay, so let's change this to left hand side. Again, capitals make a difference. Right hand side. From the both here, I want to run my left and my right hand rule. Left hand side I just want to run the left hand side, right hand side I just want to run the right hand side rule. In every case I want to run the overall dimensions rule. So again, let's add a bit of code in, copy and paste again, and in here we're going to change this to overall dim. Okay. This one for both I'm going to run dim left hand side and dim right hand side. So let's just copy that. Okay. In the left hand side one we're just going to run that one, and in the right hand side we'll just run the right hand side rule. I really hope this works. So let's try this, hit OK. You can see it's added all three in. Great. Let's just save my drawing. So, very quick check. If I go to my model, change this from both to left hand side. There we go. Hit save. One of the things you may be worried about is, well, that face, right hand face has now disappeared. What happens to the attribute? Well, if I look at the helper, these now say nothing. As soon as that door's turned back on, that will say it's face proxy again. Okay, back to my cabinet. We'll see it's deleted the, it's broken the dimensions here, but that's alright, because as soon as I run my process rule, it's going to delete those out, and it's going to add in those additional tools. I have rules that also center the text in my list of external rules. So if I say center annotation text, you can see that centering it up for me. There are a variety of rules you can get. I also have one that I use that also doesn't arrange dimensions should I need to. So we've done left hand side. Let's change this to right hand side. Save my model. I always save the model just in case. Run my process rule again. And you can see this is swapped over. Final test. I'm going to go from right hand side to both. Okay. Again, save my design. Go to my drawing. run my process rule, and there we have it. It's put all three back in again. These rules I have made available through the video here. If you do want the PowerPoint, just get in contact and we should be able to do that. If you want more complex examples, then please get in touch. Our details are on our website, so if you go to symmetry.co.uk, you should be able to contact us and we should be able to help you out. I hope that's been of interest, I hope it's been of use, and I hope you enjoy using iLogic. Cheers.